we would be airlifted to our position, which had been selected for us by planners using computers, designed to map out the best positions for all-around air defense coverage after the 2nd and 3rd Battalions, Parachute Regent and 40, 4-2, and 4-5 Commando Royal Marines had cleared the ground. Well, now we knew where we'd be going and what we'd be doing. It helped a bit, though I didn't like the fact that, unlike the first 2 phases, us crap hats would be going ashore in broad daylight. This didn't strike me as a very good idea at all. I knew that I ought to get some rest, but apart from the odd catnap, I couldn't sleep. There was too much adrenaline pumping around, too many wild thoughts. We were told that there would be a church service on board later that night, and that we could attend of our own free will. Religion being a personal matter, even in the army. Though I was born a Catholic, I was not particularly religious, and didn't much bother with church normally, but it seemed prudent to change my habits, even if it was just a case of hedging my bets. There was a reasonable chance that I could be dead in a few hours, and I wanted to exit via the up escalator if that happened. I polished my boots, brushed my beret, and set off for the chapel, a small mess room. One was a few minutes early. There were only half a dozen people there, a few senior ranks and NCOs, and a couple of buckshies like me. The padre said a couple of prayers, made an observation or two, and the rest of the service was spent singing hymns for those in peril. On the sea in Jerusalem struck me as being particularly relevant, and we finished off with a rousing chorus of Land of Hope and Glory. On other visits to church, at Christmas and for weddings and the like, I tend to mumble along to the hymns, not really bothering to think about what the words mean. That night, I sang from the bottom of my heart, loud, not caring how tuneless I sounded. I have never enjoyed a church service more. It made me feel protected, and as though I was on the good side in a crusade against evil. God is watching over us. He will protect us. We're the good guys, aren't we? I noticed on the way out that a lot more people had turned up after me. I saw a few faces that surprised me, and I think the feeling was mutual. It was almost as though the ship itself was sinking, and suddenly everyone was clutching a cross and a Bible and begging for forgiveness. There was no humor, no mistaking, as would generally be the norm, and we all filed off to recheck our equipment again, and then to reread a book, page after page after page, without paying any attention to what the words said. The ship was in the highest state of battle readiness now, darkened, all hatches sealed, everybody milling about their personal equipment in the eerie red emergency lighting. It reminded me a little of a battery parade in a brothel, minus the whores. I lay on my bunk, lots of weird and totally irrelevant thoughts bouncing around in my brain. I wished I was at home, taking Nikki, my mongrel dog, for a walk, coming through our door, Ma'am making the tea, sausage, mash, and beans, all piled into a big mountain in the middle of my plate. I could see my dad coming in from work, unlike him not to go straight to the pub, and shouting at my poor ma'am because there wasn't enough meat on his plate. My eyes closed. I could actually smell the chemicals on his clothes from the British cellophane factory mixing in with the frying sausage. Thoughts of Carol. I wished I was sitting in her kitchen, door shut, the muffled sound of Coronation Street in the background as we have a quick snog. I wondered what she was doing, whether she'd be thinking of me, whether she'd have the slightest idea of what I was doing. I'd have given a lot to have been with her right then, to have someone say, "It's all been a big mistake. Tony, we're all going home." Then an NCO shouted, waking me from my daydream. "Upstairs to collect your ammo," he bawled, single file. "Keep the fucking noise down. Keep the fucking noise down." What about you? I collected my stash. 5 magazines of 20 rounds, 7.62mm rifle ammo, 2 LTWO grenades, and 4 rounds for the Charlie G anti-tank weapon. The 84mm Carl Gustav, a medium-range anti-armor weapon, was a heavy bastard, and so were its projectiles. I picked up my first field dressings, my morphine, and some ancillary equipment for the Rapier and a bone dome helmet. We were told to double-check that we didn't have any personal items with us, letters, anything that could be useful to the enemy. I pictured the scene before the RGs kicked the living shite out of me, shagged me, and put a round through my head. The nice one of my letters from home in his hand, would be saying, "Anthony, I see your mama as a proud Roman Catholic. I know it's not your fault. You're in the Malvinas. The evil Thatcher sent you. She doesn't care about the poor soldiers she sends to war. Your mama and Jesus, and I know that you being here is wrong. And so do you. You want to help us, don't you? Now, what regiment are you in? Come, now, tell us, and you can have some corned beef and sleep." Me assuming I was brave enough. Piss off, Biff, boff, lights out. Letters from home. What am I on about? I didn't get a single letter from my parents the whole time I was away. I didn't give it a second thought, but in later years I've realized it's actually quite sad. Knowing someone is at home who loves and cares about you helps you to get through things. At least I didn't get any distractions to take my mind off the job, though 4 hours to go. I couldn't sit still, never mind sleep, so I decided to strip down my rifle and clean it again. It couldn't get any cleaner, it would have put a new one to shame. But it gave me something to concentrate on. That rifle loved me because I loved it. It wouldn't T-jam on me while some sadistic RG Special Forces bastard with a penchant for tearing men sconads off with his bare hands ran towards me, grinning from fat greasy ear to bloody ear all the time, singing to myself under my breath, "If I die in a combat zone, box me up and ship me home," over and over again. Yes, I'd watched enough NAM films and read enough paperbacks to get me through this piece of piss, no sweat, just to really make my day. One of the guys popped his head round the door. "Have you heard the news, Mac?" he said, his face tight with tension. "A Sea King helicopter has gone down in the sea. There were 18 SAS lads on board. They're all dead. That's a real morale booster. That is, the SAS are superhuman, almost mythological beings that you never actually meet. SAS men can't die. They're indestructible. If they can die, I can definitely die." "Shut up, they're not dead. It's all bollocks. They've probably swum ashore, probably surfed ashore on the busted-off rotorblades, and are, even now, tucked up nice and warm in some little farmhouse." But the reality was that they were dead. Exactly the same dead as the sailors drowned. Burned or blown apart on the Sheffield and the Belgrano. The chopper had gone down during a flight between two of our ships, killing a signaller and an RAF man. The ridiculous thing is, the crash was supposedly down to an albatross hitting the aircraft. A sodding albatross. It was almost comical if it wasn't so tragic. They're supposed to bring you good luck, aren't they? As I sat there, their mates were probably already making jokes about it, the way soldiers do. They'd be gutted, angry, sad as you like, but they'd still be having the cratic. It's a British thing. We're good at taking the piss out of ourselves, and squaddies are better than most. It's like a pressure release valve. I wondered how strong that valve would need to be other the coming weeks. I finally managed to half doze off, but it wasn't too long before I was woken and ordered to the galley for breakfast, or the Last Supper, as we called it. The fear stronger now made me feel a little sick, but I stuffed as much bacon, sausage, and egg down my throat as I could, as this was probably the last fresh rations I'd be eating for a while. Just as the last piece of bacon found its way into my belly, 40 Commando would be hitting San Carlos and 4-5 Commando getting stuck in at Ajax Bay. God must have liked our singing in the chapel, because he delayed on some thick fog and cloud and kept it nice and dark, though down there in the south, at that time of year, it doesn't get light till late on at the best of times.